Welcome to the Impact Investing Show with your host, Samuel Ikinwin. It's a great pleasure to be here today, guys, in order to give you so much more value. I hope you're doing well. I want to say a great big welcome to Cornelia and every single other person who's going to be in the comments throughout tonight's show. So I hope you guys are doing well. I'm looking forward to tonight's show for a number of reasons. First and foremost, because I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different in tonight's show. And yes, as usual, we will have the phone lines open in order for you guys to get massive value as we go through tonight's show. So I hope you are ready. I hope you've come prepared, and I hope you have fastened your seatbelt in order for you to get your property questions answered and to get some value in tonight's show. Now, before we get kickstarted, I want to start by sharing with you guys our typical disclaimer that we like to share on every single show. The reason why is because we want people doing their due diligence. We want people going out of their way to make sure that they're doing the absolute right thing in order to move forward in their property journey. So just to start with, we want to let you know that all information provided and results that are given, that are going to be shared throughout tonight's show, are exemplary, and each person's results may vary or differ. Results are based on consistent strategies being employed and used, and we advise that you always seek the adequate and appropriate financial advice from a qualified professional, as well as legal advice in the respective case. Now, look, without further ado, I want to get straight into tonight's show. I want to just start adding value to you guys as a community. Now, I hope you've got the questions ready. I hope you've got your questions ready, because we've come ready to help you today and to push you forward in your property journey. So without further ado, let's do what you guys are usually waiting for and open up the phone lines. So right now, the phone lines are open. As you can see, the telephone lines are open. So feel free to call in if you have any questions, so your property questions can be answered. Now, first and foremost, let me say this before we get into the nitty gritty and the crux of tonight's show. These shows have been put on for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that purpose is to help you move forward in your property journey. Now, a number of weeks ago, when the lockdown was first announced, what basically happened is I had a bunch of people, coaching clients, people that knew what I was up to in the property scene, basically asking me, Samuel, what do I do with this? What do I do with that? People asking me all of these questions as it pertains to their property journey. And as a direct result, I was giving some people some answers, but what I very quickly realized is this would become quite unsustainable. And if it became unsustainable to answer all of these questions again and again from different people that were reaching out and asking these questions, then a whole bunch of other people like yourselves who are viewing this might potentially miss out. And we don't want you to miss out. We do not want you to miss out. We want to provide extreme amounts of value for every single person who engages with us as an organization and as potential clients, etc. So as a result, what I said that I was going to do is jump on YouTube every single week and just run the live show, because by running the live show, what we basically do is we create the opportunity for you to get your questions answered. Now, those same people who were asking a whole bunch of questions prior to lockdown and when the first information about COVID hit, those people have been able to call in. Those people have been able to ask their questions, and those people have been able to connect with me in order for me to strategize with them and help them move forward in their property journey. So why don't you take me up on that exact same offer and let us know if you have specific situations you would like to work with us in order for us to help you strategize through in terms of your property journey. So we're here to help. All right. We've got our first caller in already. I'm absolutely loving this. Without further ado, we're going to jump on the phones in order to help caller number one. So I hope you guys are ready for caller number one and the questions that they're going to have tonight. So let's jump into the call. Caller number 3054. So let's get caller 3054 on. Good evening. Good evening, Noemi. I'm doing absolutely fantastic. I hope you're doing well. Excellent. Now, before we go into your question, I just want to ask you a couple of questions, which I usually ask. So I think I've asked you before when you've called in the past, but are you happy for the YouTube world to hear all of the things that you are going to ask me throughout this specific call? Excellent. And are you happy for them also to hear what I would say are my recommendations or what I potentially would do if I was in the same predicament as well? Excellent. All right. So before I ask Noemi to start to share exactly what she is basically wanting to strategize through, what I want to ask you to do if you're a viewer is first and foremost, just write in the comments. Let me know that you can hear Noemi absolutely clearly. She will be speaking in a moment. And side by side with that you can hear and see me absolutely clearly and you're ready to go for tonight's show. So without further ado, over to you, Noemi. How can we help you?
I've got two questions on slightly different topics, but regarding sourcing. The first one is actually a few weeks ago, together on one of these YouTube sessions, we talked a lot around how to come up with a strategy regarding sourcing. And since then, I've been talking to a number of investors who it seems like a long journey to find the right kind of investors for that. So my target audience in terms of investors are people or companies that would be buying 10 to 20 properties in London per year, and it's not a once-in-a-lifetime purchase. It's not a rare purchase. And what I'm finding is the more I talk to those kinds of people and companies is they don't have really specific criteria for I only buy this postcode and this kind of property and this kind of conversion and this kind of ROI. They're much more relaxed with their criteria.
Apologies for cutting you, Noemi. I can hear you perfectly, but I didn't hear one part that you actually mentioned. So you said that you know, based on that particular strategy, you've been trying to work with that, and you're finding that you have to find effectively buyers who are buying multiple properties in a monthly period. And then I kind of just lost you there. So if you can just reiterate that little part, and then you feel free to keep going.
Sure. So those kinds of individuals that buy multiple properties per month, per year in London, they have much more relaxed criteria. They're not about, I only buy this property in this postcode with this ROI. And what I'm finding is they keep telling me, it's any area, anything that makes a good deal, and they're much more relaxed about that. So I'm wondering, is there actually what would be the purpose in me going out and saying, I only work in this area, I only do this kind of property, versus what if I called, I could go and speak to all the estate agents that have topmost reduced properties all across London, or that have been on the market for more than a year, and maybe those would be good deals. What is the purpose in having a specific area and a specific strategy when my investors are not working that way?
Powerful. That's absolutely a powerful question. So guys, I haven't got anyone's comments letting me know that you can hear Noemi yet. So as a result, I'm just going to reiterate Noemi's question. Guys, if you can hear Noemi and you are getting value already, hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe and be a part of our channel. Now, Noemi's question very simply was, she's been looking at property sourcing as a strategy going forward. She's basically taken some advice and said, you know what, why don't you double down, focus on one particular area, one particular property strategy, one particular kind of niche, and just focus on that, and then basically start to work with investors who you could sell those opportunities onto. Now, what Noemi's basically highlighted is that when she started to speak to the kind of investors who are buying high frequencies of properties in a short period of time, the kind of investors who are buying 3 or 4 properties in a month, for example, she's finding very much so that those specific investors are not necessarily as interested in the granular details, i.e. this specific postcode or this specific return on investment. Is that a good assessment of kind of what you were sharing with me, Noemi?
Yes, that is.
Excellent. So basically, if I was in your shoes, these are the 2 things that I would definitely do, okay? And these are the 2 things which I think are very, very important. The first thing is, if you're starting out in your sourcing journey, which is obviously a little bit of an insight into kind of where you are in your journey, and obviously where you are in your journey will depend and have a determination on how you basically approach this. But if you're starting out on your sourcing journey, so for example, what I mean by that is you are still trying to source your first deal or your first, second, third deal. You're in that early stage where you haven't sourced multiple deals in the past. What I would be saying to you is, when you're in this predicament where you're coming across investors who are saying to you, yes, I do buy multiple properties, but I'm not interested in the granular details. One of the things you have to bear in mind is you have to think long term. So when I say think long term, what do I mean specifically? if you build your business, and I talk about this all of the time, if you build your business around this one particular investor who doesn't want to look granular, then that's absolutely fine, okay? But the problem with that is if in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, that investor retires, or that investor for some reason decides to no longer invest in property in the UK, then your whole client base is eradicated in a moment. And this is why you have to really think long term. So when I'm saying think long term, this is part of the reason why if you are starting out on your property sourcing journey, it makes sense to go granular. It makes sense to become comfortable in an area. Now, you're not becoming comfortable in an area so that for the rest of your sourcing career, that's all you do, and that patch or that area is all you invest in or all you find deals in. The reason you're becoming granular is because it allows you to do a number of things. It allows you, one, to have focus. And I don't know about you guys who are viewing, but you hopefully have heard the acronym for focus, which is follow one course until successful. And the funniest thing is a lot of people fail to follow one course until successful because of the simple fact that they're trying to pander to the investors' needs rather than thinking about the long-term nature of their business. So I would always advise any person who's starting out in their property sourcing business to focus on one area, and whilst they focus on that one area, find great deals in that area. Now, why is this a pro in both scenarios? So when I say both scenarios, the first scenario is just exactly as Noemi's described. You've got investors who only, are interested, or let me go for the other side. You've got investors, unlike Noemi's described, who are only interested in your area and in specific deals. And then secondarily, as Noemi's described, you've got investors who are kind of nonchalant. They don't really mind where the deals are as long as they're great deals. Now, the reality is if you as a sourcing agent are focused on one area, if you as a sourcing agent become very familiar with that area and start to understand what great deals are in that area, when you offer those deals to people who do not care about the area or do not care necessarily about the return on investment, as long as they can see that there's a deal, that will work for them. And the reason it will work for them is because if they don't care about the area you're focused on, again, keyword focus, will be fine for them. Again, if they're not really too concerned about, the numbers, but they just want to make sure it's a deal. Well, if you are focused on an area, you're in the best position to actually adequately present how that is a good deal. And the problem for many sourcing agents when they start, and I can point you in the direction of so many sourcing agents I've seen who have done this over the years, over probably the last decade, is they get into sourcing, they learn a few skills about how to start marketing, how to start the sourcing process. Straight after that, they then meet a couple of investors. These investors say, oh, I'm looking here and here and here and here and here. And they give them 5 different directions. And those individuals start looking in 5 different directions. And unfortunately, most people know you cannot become a specialist in 5 different directions all at the same time as fast as you can become a specialist in one area focused in one set of time. So the reason I'm sharing this with you, Noemi, is because what I want you to understand is you doubling down, you focusing on one specific area, and you focusing on a few, maybe 2 or 3, or even just one specific approach to generating income as a sourcing agent is going to be beneficial for you, for people who are nonchalant about the area, as long as your area is not an area they've blacklisted. Does that make sense?
It does. Can I build on it?
Yes, you can. And you said you had a second question, but I also had a second point. So I'm going to give you the second point, and then we're going to come back to you building on it before we go into the second question, if that's okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, guys. And again, those of you who are watching, if you're getting value, feel free to press like, subscribe, and be a part of the community. So, Noemi, the second thing I want to say, not only think long term, and as you think long term, consider very heavily whether or not niching down is going to be beneficial for both those people who you've alluded to, who are not interested or not so worried about the area, and side by side with that, those people that I brought up who are concerned about the area. The next thing besides thinking long term is think about your own growth. Think about your own development. Now, if you go into property sourcing as a individual who tomorrow or next week, after you've sold 2 or 3 deals, you are no longer going to be doing property sourcing, then what I'm about to say does not apply to you. But if you're the kind of person who wants to build a sustainable business using property sourcing as a strategy, as a vehicle in order to help you build your own property portfolio as well as the property portfolios of others, then what I'm about to say is going to be very key. And it's really think about how you are going to develop as a property sourcing agent. Now, going back to kind of one of the things I alluded to in the previous example that I was sharing with you, if, for example, you diversify your efforts, if you are focused on 5, 6, 7 different cities, if you're focused on 5, 6, 7 different parts of the country, the problem with that is sometimes your efforts are so diluted, it's going to reduce your ability to really have specialist knowledge in that marketplace. So for example, if you get somebody who's looking at a 4,000 property radius in Bournemouth, and that person is doing the same thing in that area again and again and again and again, that person's going to learn from their mistakes. That person's going to pick up things that others aren't going to pick up. That person's going to find opportunities others aren't going to find because they're very focused on that specific niche. Whereas a number of other people, especially at the starting level, and this is kind of really who I'm gearing what I'm sharing to. I'm really targeting this to people who are on the beginning of their journey as property sourcing agents. Please bear in mind, the moment you start to divert your attention from one area or 2 areas into 3, 4, 5 areas, very quickly people are going to see that you are not very knowledgeable about a number of those areas because you're diluting your efforts. So the amount of information you will find out about one area will take you longer than someone else who's just niched and laser focused on that area. So they're the 2 things that I'd share with you. Feel free to build upon it. Like I said, the first thing is just think long term about what is actually the real asset for both the groups of people, both those that you mentioned and those you didn't mention. And then secondarily, also think about your own development, your own growth as a property sourcing agent and as you build up that business. You know, do you want to be known for, oh, she's the person who sources everything everywhere? Or do you want to be known as someone who actually specializes, has a niche, and this is what people can come to you for? So they're the 2 things I'd share with you just before you build upon it. So go for it. What else would you like to build upon in that regard?
Cool. Thank you. I'm wondering, because this seems like the wise path, but also a longer path, and I'm seeing people that started out at the same time as me have more or less the same knowledge, and they're getting results because they didn't take this kind of an approach, and they're actually thinking of expanding, scaling in the next 6 months, versus my goal still is to get my first deal.
Amazing.
So in that regard, you know, I understand that it makes sense for the long term, but in the short term, I see people around me that are getting results all the time, and it's a difficult balance.
Yep. I totally get that. So guys, I've got a comment in the chat. Thank you, Osa, who said the question is loud and clear. Thanks for another great session. Most welcome. Guys, I just want to encourage you, if you're getting value, let YouTube know, press like. So Noemi's added to this question, and as Osa said, I assume all of you guys can hear. Noemi's now brought in the fact that, there's other people who she feels as though started their journey at the same time, or maybe even after her, who now she's seeing they're actually materializing deals, they're moving forward with their business. And she said in some cases, some of these people are potentially looking at scaling up their business. And Noemi, obviously, from what you're saying, you don't feel comfortable about the fact that maybe you started at the same time, but you've maybe taken a different tact. And as a result, although you see the benefit, the value in that approach maybe being good for long term, for right now, for the immediate future, you're also saying that, you're not getting what they're getting. So as a result, maybe you should change your stance. And you know what? Your statement at the end, Noemi, is a very powerful statement and a very relevant statement when you make the statement and say, you know what, it's a challenging situation. And the reality is, these are the challenges, which is what mindset corrects. And this is why mindset is so important. A lot of people in the property space don't really focus on their mindset, but mindset is important. You have to have grit and you have to be able to stick at something. And this again comes back to the acronym we used earlier about focus, follow one course until successful. Now, I would say to you this, Noemi, for you to feel very clear about how I think about what we're talking about. You are free. This is something you have to always remember. You are free to do anything you want to do, okay? And the reason I'm saying that to you is because I remember when I used to work in schools, I used to be a teacher trainer and I used to teach A-level maths. And I used to say to the children, I'd have 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-old, young people, young adults. And I'd say to them in the classroom, I'd say, guys, I hope you all understand and you're all aware that you're free to make any decision you want. And I'd always get the cheeky student, and this is why it's so funny talking about this. I'd always get the cheeky student who'd say to me, so what, sir, really, can I just walk out of the classroom? And I said to him, of course you can walk out the classroom. I'd always say to that student, of course you can walk out the classroom. You're free to walk out the classroom. Like, I'm a big believer that God created every human being with free will. So free will means you can do whatever you want. Now, the reality is, I'd also share with that student, which is probably the reason I'm sharing this example with you, Noemi, to understand exactly where I'm coming from with this. I'd also share with the student, there are also consequences to the actions you take. There are consequences to the things we do. So what I'm saying to you is, you are free to do exactly what you're seeing. Like, for me personally, and again, I'm going to share this about myself. When I hear the statement you've shared, my only issue with that statement is I think to myself, well, the problem with that is I'm following someone else. I'm trying to, the whole statement. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, Noemi, but there's a statement known as keeping up with the Joneses. You go and get a job, you're getting 50,000 a year, but because the street you live on, everybody's got a BMW, you think you need to buy a BMW and you can't afford the BMW, but you still go and buy the BMW. So now you're paying £600 a month for a BMW that maybe you don't even like, if you spent some time and actually asked yourself what you really do like, but you've got the car, so all your neighbors know you've got the same car as them and they perceive you're just like them. And I think the problem sometimes, not only in property, but in life, is that when we see shiny pennies, we see other people moving forward in a certain way, maybe like we want, we start thinking, well, surely I've got to do what they do. And the problem is, when you get a coach or a mentor, one of the things I've learned is coaches and mentors a lot of time have something that a lot of people who are your contemporaries may not have. And that is hindsight. They have the ability to say, well, look, you know what? I did that approach 5 years ago. And when I did that approach, I got results. But those results were short-lived because people started to know me as the person who doesn't dot the I's and who doesn't cross the T's. And the problem with that is that doesn't allow you to really scale. You might build a business and make your business bigger, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to scale successfully. So again, the people you're talking about as examples, I don't know who they are, and it's not about who they are. It's just about you being in the right space for yourself to build your business. And that's the same to any person who's viewing this. Guys, if you're coming on this show, my heart for you is that you're in the right space, in the right frame of mind, in order to build your property business successfully. And in order to do that, one of the main things you're going to have to make sure you're not doing is just following the crowd. I've done a video before, it's on the channel, I believe it's one of our vlogs, where I spoke about herd mentality. Herd mentality is one of the most common characteristics in this world, in the UK. Someone says, oh, you have to wear a mask. What happens? Everybody starts putting on masks. You haven't necessarily scrutinized the information. You haven't necessarily gone out of your way to find out if this is actually a longevity approach or longevity plan, a long play, but we all just agree. And sometimes you have to realize that I should check things out for myself. I should actually go and get my own sample. My undergraduate degree, my first master's were all in statistics. And we talk a lot in statistics about getting a sample, not just looking at one person who you might know who's getting some great results, but asking yourself with 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 people, what approaches are you doing? What results are you getting? And from that sample, moving forward. But like I said, one of the benefits of asking people who are further along, and again, your sample that you take, in terms of the example I'm giving for you, Noemi, might actually be a sample of more advanced people. Because again, the insights you will grasp from that are going to be phenomenally more beneficial than the insights you will grasp from people who started when you started, if that makes sense. Yeah?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So feel free, Noemi, if there's more to this question, because I know like these kind of questions, whenever I have coaching clients or people calling in who ask these kind of questions, these questions are loaded questions. They're not questions that are surface level. And these are the kind of questions I love working through, because, the key to any business is the business owner. And I can say that again and again, any day. All right. The key to any business is the business owner. If the business owner is lackadaisical, it will show up in the business. If the business owner is aggressive, it will show up in the business. The key to any business is the business owner. So what that basically means is we have to be on a constant improvement cycle in our life. Okay, and guys, I said we. The reason I said we is because I'm in that same boat. We have to be on a constant improvement cycle in our life. Now, there's two things. Again, this is a bit of added value, but I'll share this with you, Noemi, and those of you who are watching. There are two things that I think are pertinent to setting yourself up on that constant improvement cycle. The first one is the people you surround yourself with. So what do I mean by that? If you surround yourself with people who have problems and all they ever see are their problems, then over a period of time, all you will see are problems. All you will see are the problems and the problems you're facing. If you surround yourself with people who see solutions and who are solution oriented, solution focused, you will get to a better place and space in your life where you can start focusing on solutions. That's the first thing, the people you surround yourself with. Now, I'll add another caveat to that before I go on to the second point. The reason why this is so important, okay, and you know, I even want to slow down as I share this because this really means a lot to me. The reason why it is so important, the people you surround yourself with, is because many people come in disguises, okay? I'm an avid reader of the Bible. Those who know me know I spend a lot of time reading the Bible. There are a lot of principles and nuggets in there. And one of the verses in the Bible talks about people who what they call are wolves in sheep's clothing. Okay, wolves in sheep's clothing. And look, I'll be the first to say the property environment, the property space has lots of these kind of people. Why? Because property is a high cash flowing asset class. So the same way you have a lot of people doing great stuff in property, you could have a lot of people who are doing not so great stuff in property. So when we start to understand exactly what we're talking about, surrounding yourself with the right people, part of that is trying to identify people, trying to say to yourself, you know what, is this the right person for me? And that's the key. Not is this the right person, but is this the right person for me? If I'm hiring a virtual assistant, I'm asking myself, is this the right person for me, for my organization? If I'm hiring, if I'm even enrolling a coaching client, I have to ask myself that question. Is this the right person for me? If I'm looking for my newest coach, my next coach, or if I'm looking to continue with my existing coach, I've got to ask myself, with the growth that I've taken from the coach so far, is this still the right coach for me in terms of where I am in my journey? And these are questions we have to ask ourselves. Why? Because they're soul-searching questions which allow us to tick the box of getting the right people around us. So that's the first thing that I'll share in terms of hacks, little hacks we can do in order to make sure that we're on this cycle of constant improvement, making sure we're around the right people. That's the first thing. The second thing is making sure our eyes are on the right prize, okay? And I'm going to say this again because a lot of people are going to miss this, okay? We have to make sure our eyes are on the right prize. Now, what do I mean by this? We get many people in life, similar to kind of like the example that you alluded to, Noemi, who are looking at their goal, okay? And their goal might be to be the first person who crosses that line for the 100 meters sprint, for example, okay? Now, when Usain Bolt starts on the dock for the run and he's looking at that end line, he wants to be the first person to cross that line. That's his goal. Now, the problem is when he starts running and starts seeing people running, or let me even use this terminology because I know Usain Bolt probably never has this, but I'll still say it. You know, everybody loses a race once. When Usain Bolt or any pro athlete, runner, start seeing other runners edge past them or catch up to them or get close to them, do you know what a lot of these runners do? If they don't have the right mindset, they change their goal. They change their goal. Their goal no longer becomes, I want to be the first person to tear through the tape. I want to be the first person to finish this race. And for some people, when they start seeing people catch up with them, when they start seeing people surpass them, their mindset, maybe not being in the right place, becomes, I just want to make sure that I can at least be third. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to hear the language I've just used, okay? I want to be the first person to cross through that line versus I want to at least be third. Now, the reason I'm sharing this like this is because I want people to take away something from this. Part of the depth of what I want people to take away from this is the difference between the abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset. You know, when someone makes the statement such as, I want to at least be third, you can hear what they're thinking with, whether they're thinking with an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset. When someone says, I'm going to be, I want to be, I will be the first person who tears through that tape in this race, you can hear again, and you can make your own judgments, guys. Those of you who are watching, you can tell me what you think. If someone says, I'm gonna be the first person to tear through the tape, guys, throw in the chat, throw in the comments, let me know whether that person's thinking with an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset. Okay, if anyone can do it, Noemi, you can do it. And that's the same to every single one of you viewers who are watching. If anyone can do it, you can do it. Okay, but the key is to have your eyes on the correct prize. Don't shift your goals because of people. Don't shift your goals because of other people's experiences. Oh, this guy's just sold 2 deals. He must be a mega investor. He must, whatever he's doing must be right. Yeah, it might be right for him and it might not be right for you. And the key to basically decipher whether it is right for you or whether you should make a change is always going back and understanding from a correct mindset what you're doing this for. What are your goals? Okay, and guys, I'm not saying this stuff to point fingers at you guys as viewers or you, Noemi, as a caller in. I'm saying this stuff because this is stuff I do myself. I have to do this myself. I have to say to myself periodically, Samuel, are you focused on the right prize? Have you shifted your goals? Have you started looking at shiny pennies? Are you more concerned with the things that do not concern your goal or the things that you've earmarked as your goal? And I share this with you before I open it up if you've got anything else, Noemi, before we go on to the next caller. But I'm reading this book and I was thinking about this morning. I'm reading this book for the second time in 2 years. Okay, and that is very rare. Most people who know me, who've been following me for some time, you know I usually read around 7 books at a time. Okay, so because I read so many books at a time, it's very rare that I read the same book again in a short succession. So for me, a year is usually a short succession. But for the second time in 2 years, I'm reading this book. Okay, if you want to know the name of the book, let me know in the comments. Or Noemi, if you're interested, let me know and I'll share it with you. Now, there's a statement that was said in the book which I want to share with you. And that statement was all about people's visions and people's dreams and people's goals. And what the author was saying is, look, there's a very fine line, a very thin balance between dreaming, having a vision, having a goal, and doing, taking action and getting the stuff done. And what the author said, which was extremely powerful, he said he is often asked, how do you balance having a vision, having a goal, having the dream, and actually getting stuff done, focusing on the work of today, which will slowly, one bite at a time, get you to that big elephant that you're trying to finish eating. And he said, this is what you need to do. He said, your first thought should be towards your vision. But he said your first deed should be towards action. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Your first thought should be towards the vision, but your first deed should be towards the action. Now, what does that mean? What that means is when you take time to contemplate, to consider, to work on your mindset, to get out your journal, to start theorizing, to strategize, which is what we're doing here on the show. When you're taking time to strategize, that's the thinking zone. So you should be focused on your vision. But when you're actually going to take action tomorrow morning, Monday morning, 9 a.m., when you know what, I've got this dream, I can spend more time thinking about the dream, but you know what, it's Monday morning, it's action time. You know what you do Monday morning, action time? You're not thinking, because it's not thinking time Monday morning, it's work time. So you now crunch into action mode and you take action. You do what you've got to do today that's going to get you to that space in the eventual future of your goal. So it's all about having a very clear mind towards what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve, and side by side with the action that needs to be taken. And it's making it happen. All right. So hopefully that's been of value to you, Noemi.
Yes, definitely. So what's the title of the book?
Okay, so Noemi's asked for the title of the book. The book is called Thou Shall Prosper. Thou, Thou, shalt prosper. And the book is written by, the author is Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He is a Jewish Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He's got a lot of amazing content out there in the world. You can Google him, you can YouTube him. You'll find so much content from him. But I think it's the second book he wrote, Thou Shall Prosper. It's the 10 commandments of prospering in your life.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Most
can I
welcome.
quickly jump on before we go?
You say that again. Can you quickly?
jump to the second point before we
Yes.
go?
Go for it. You don't need to do it quickly, but go for it. Go for your second question. Guys, again, like I've said, if you're getting value, hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and be a part of our community so we can continue to share value this way with those who call in. So, Noemi, go for it. Question number 2.
It's regarding sourcing as well, and I'm wondering about sourcing remotely in an area that I've already been there. I know it, but
Yep.
I am not physically there. What would be some of the considerations that I should take into account? I'm aware of different platforms you can use where you can request and pay individuals to go and take photos and do the actual viewing, but what are some of the wider considerations I should have in mind in doing that?
That's a major question, and it's a brilliant one as well. So, the whole movement of, and this is just mainly for the viewers, for me to give a bit of context, the whole movement of remote sourcing. Basically, for those of you who do not know what remote sourcing is, that's where you find property opportunities in an area where you're not necessarily geographically based, and you secure those deals just like a normal sourcing agent would do, and then you sell them onto investors. But the real key to remote sourcing is the fact that you're doing that activity remotely. You're not necessarily in that area as you're doing that activity. Now, because remote sourcing is becoming more and more of a fad, there's a lot more literature, a lot more content, a lot more YouTube videos and people talking about remote sourcing. It's one of those areas which is a bit tricky, but Noemi's basically asked me to give kind of some key considerations. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you 3 considerations to think about in terms of remote sourcing. The first key in terms of remote sourcing, I would say, is boots on the ground. Okay, boots on the ground. What kind of boots on the ground can you get in order to support you? Now, when I say support you, I'm talking about various things which will have to take place in order for you to secure properties. Now, one of those things might be viewings. You have to do viewings in order to secure deals. That's going to be part of the process. Now, you don't have to view every property you secure, but viewing properties helps with being able to be more confident about your numbers, more confident about the deal, etc., etc., etc. So, the first thing I'd say to you is start to consider how you can get boots on the ground. Okay, how can you get people in that area, even though you are not geographically there, to support you, work with you, etc. I'll give you an example. I've got one of my coaching clients. They're based in Milton Keynes, a family based in Milton Keynes. And the funniest thing is they were doing deals outside of London, outside of Milton Keynes, okay? And the way that they did that is all they did is we had a strategy call, a strategy session, and through that strategy session, one of the things I said to them is start to rekindle relationships with all of your old leads. And one of their old leads was an estate agent in a city where property prices are not that much. So coming from somewhere like Milton Keynes, where a 3-4 bedroom house might be £300,000, to another area where you could potentially buy a whole farm for £300,000-400,000, and houses in that area are £50,000-60,000. This was the kind of conversation we was having, and it was through means of rekindling their engagement and relationship with this specific agent that specific agent was able to say, you know what, I've got a number of deals I can present to you. These are the deals. I can go and see the properties for you. I can actually WhatsApp you, video call, and basically show you the properties, etc., etc. So the first thing I'd say to you is think about the boots on the ground. That's the first thing. The second thing I'll say to you is think about the competitive edge, okay? And this is something most people are not going to talk to you about, but again, it's all about value, so this is why I'm sharing it. Start to think about your competitive edge. If you are a remote sourcing agent in a specific area, your question, one of your key strategy questions should be, what do I have as a competitive edge over the people that are actually based there and attempting to do sourcing? Now, one of your competitive edges, again, I'm just throwing some examples out there so you know exactly what I'm talking about, so none of this is ambiguous. One of your competitive edges might be that you have an in-depth knowledge of the HMO regulations, both nationally and in that specific area, or in other more stringent areas. Now, the reason I give that example is because that's my experience, okay? I've got a very in-depth knowledge about HMOs. I know the national guidelines close to inside out, and equally, because one of the areas that I focus on in my business is the Newham area in East London, Newham is one of the most persistent areas with Article 4. I think they were the first introducers of Article 4 in the country. So as a direct result, what that generally means is I'm very, very clued up about the Article 4 regulations and have been since 2012, as well as the national guidelines. So when I go and look at an area which, quote unquote, is easier to apply for a HMO license than Newham, you know, things not unnecessarily easy to me, but I now have a competitive edge. And the reason I have a competitive edge is because I've already invested a whole bunch of time, a whole bunch of energy, a whole bunch of, you know, my hours learning from other coaches, other mentors, other people, other investors about this specific area in terms of HMO. So this is why I'd say to you, the first thing is definitely think about having boots on the ground, people that can work for you and with you in those areas. But secondarily, start to think about how you can have a competitive edge. Now, the third thing is, I would say, build a pipeline, okay? And when I say build a pipeline, I'm not just talking about any pipeline. I would encourage you to consider how you can build the most solid pipeline of leads and opportunities. By leads and opportunities, I'm talking about both leads in terms of potential sellers or potential renters, depending on the strategy that you're employing, and then also leads in terms of investors who are interested and keen on that area. Because one of the biggest issues is you don't want to start remote sourcing in the area, and then when you start getting leads, geographically, because you've never been there or because you're not there, I know you mentioned in your example, Noemi, you have been there before, but because you're not there geographically on a regular basis presently, the people you're physically really meeting and building the strongest relationships with are people who aren't there. And as a result of them not being there, they may not be thinking about that location. So that's the third thing I would say to you. Think about how to build a very significantly strong pipeline of leads and opportunities, just so that by the time you do acquire opportunities in such areas, you know where those opportunities are going to. You know people who are going to buy them, you know people who are ready to commit, and you know people you can work with to move forward on those opportunities. I hope that helps in terms of answering the question.
That makes sense. Yes, thank you.
Excellent. All right, Noemi, always a pleasure. Feel free to get in touch. We was actually thinking of you earlier today, so feel free to continue to engage. And you know, if you've got questions, let us know what those questions are so we can help you move forward in your journey. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you for calling in. All right, guys, that was Nowhere Me. And guys, like we've said, you know, if you're getting any value from this call, hit the like button. Let the YouTube world know that the content here is valuable. We've got another caller, which we're going to take right now. Thank you for being so patient, caller. And this is 1762. Caller 1762. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Caller 1762.
Hello. Oh, hello.
Good evening.
Oh, hi, it's me. It's Yogesh.
Hi, Yogesh. How you doing?
I'm good.
Excellent.
How are you?
Excellent. I'm doing really well. Thank you ever so much for calling in. How can we help you?
My question is, I've been invited to a panel of like a TV show where there's some judges and finance people, investors, and I've got a potential deal. And I've never tried to ask for money ever before from other people. Yep. And I'd like the key tips of what makes people really want to invest with you and, you know, invest their money in your deal and you. What highlights do I need to come across? That's my question today. Yeah. Okay,
so this is a really powerful question. And part of the reason I say it's really powerful is I've got a number of people that I support in terms of coaching capacities, and I very rarely get asked this question. And it's funny because I think it's quite an important question. So I'm very glad you've actually asked this question, and I'm happy to shed some light on that. So Yogesh's question, I know you guys can hear it, but I'm just going to reiterate it before I share my answer. Yogesh's question is, what are the key tenets that you would generally focus on in order to encourage people to potentially invest their funds with you? Is that a good summary of the question, Yogesh?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, cool. So it's interesting for me because I feel like this is, again, coming back to something I've shared with you on different topics. But the first thing is, I would say implicitly, you want to know who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, and how you can project those values to other people. Now, the reason I say that is because values attract people, okay? When people see your values, like I'll give you a key example. If somebody is really stringent on the value of integrity, if integrity means a lot to them, they go out of their way to show integrity, then other people are attracted to that who actually value integrity. Does that make sense as a quick, simple example? Yeah?
yeah, like sharing values. Yeah, I got that.
Excellent. So we're going to use that as a foundation to build upon in terms of exactly how I'm going to answer your question. So the first thing is you want to become very congruent with who you are and what your values are, so you can start to attract, first and foremost, the kind of people to you that are congruent with the values. So again, you've used the term which I haven't used, but I think that's a perfect term. So thank you for sharing that, Yogesh. It's all about shared values. So start with your shared values. Straight after learning and basically projecting what your values are, the second thing is understanding that everything rotates around relationship. Now, when I say everything rotates around relationship, some people might be hearing that thinking to themselves, what does Samuel mean? Everything rotates around relationship. Well, look, everything rotates around relationship is a very, very simple concept. And what it basically means is there are people who will love you based on the relationship you have with them. And equally, there are people like Marmite who may hate you because of the relationship you have with them. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Listen, it's just the way it is. What too many people do is spend their life saying to themselves, oh, why is this guy not happy? Oh, why does this guy not like me? Oh, why does this guy like me? Guys, let me tell you something. Jim Rohn, a business philosopher who was in the US, he's passed away now. He used to say something very, very amazing about what I'm actually raising to you guys now. He used to say, I wouldn't take that class, okay? And I'm going to share that with you guys. I wouldn't take that class. If I was in a predicament where I was asking myself every single day, why the people who are happy with me are happy with me, and why the people who are not happy with me are not happy with me, that's the wrong class to take. The question, again, similar to a connection with Noemi's question previously, that I should be asking myself is, who am I and what do I need to project for the people who I'm supposed to be connected with to be able to connect with me? And again, like Yogesh said, that is all about shared values. Now, after you start projecting those values and people start coming towards you, if you understand it's about relationship, similar to what you guys can see right here, the free ebook, the sourcing blueprint, the second M in the sourcing blueprint is managing. And managing is all about something very simple: managing relationships. And the reason why the second key of the sourcing blueprint is about managing relationships is because everything is about relationships. It's about when you share those values and people start coming towards you, how you can start to build a successful relationship with them around potential shared and common goals. Now, to get some meat on the bones with this particular question that you've asked, again, because I said I'm really glad to answer this, Yogesh, I'm going to share with you some of the things. Okay, let me not go too deep. I'll share with you one thing that I was told by one of the investors who have committed the most or the highest amount of money to our business since our opening, since our operation. Is that going to be helpful for you?
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right, so let's go for this. So I was told, okay, and this is the thing. This is why it's great you've asked this question, Yogesh, because I actually ask people that invest with us, why did you decide to invest with us? Why did you decide to make this decision? All right. Now, we had one particular individual. This particular man, it was a gentleman. This particular gentleman said he was going to commit £100,000 to working with us in our property endeavors. And I turned around and said to this gentleman when he said that to me, what is the reason that you have decided to invest that amount of money with us as an organization? And he said something which blew me away at the time. Now, it blew me away at the time for two reasons. One of the reasons is quite simple, but I'm just going to be transparent about it. One of the reasons was because at the time, that was the largest amount of money that any investor had committed to work with us with, okay? So £100,000 was the largest amount of money an investor had said, guys, I'm willing to put this in. Let's put this in and start working on a project together. So the first reason it kind of took me by surprise was because of the amount of money it was at that time. The second reason was because of what he actually said to me. What he actually said to me surprised me. And he said to me when I asked him, why would you want to do that? What's basically motivated you to want to work with us at that level? He said, because Samuel, you're a family man. That was it. There was nothing else to it. He said to me, because Samuel, you are a family man. Now, everyone who follows me on social media, Facebook, etc., you know I'm a family man because I always talk about my family. I always talk about my goals, and I always make very clear what my goals are. And one of my goals, which I currently actively do, is to homeschool my children because I care and love my family. Okay. And again, guys, this is not me saying that anyone who doesn't homeschool their children doesn't care or love their family, but you understand exactly what I'm talking about. I assume that everyone who's on this live, who's engaging with this video content is mature enough to understand what I'm talking about. Now, I worked in education. I worked in secondary and A-level education. My wife worked in education. She worked in primary education. And from our experience, we decided that we think we'd be better suited to support our children through means of homeschooling than sending them to private, sending them to public, or sending them to any other form of schools that we've seen so far. Now, the reason I share that is because this investor picks up on one of my values, which is sincerity towards my family. And because he picks up on it, and because he has the same value, and I can assure you, because now I've built a stronger relationship with this gentleman, I know more about his family, etc. And I can assure you that he has, and at the time had, the exact same value. So the first thing, again, like I'm saying to you, Yogesh, is the values. Because the moment you've got shared values, that's the magnet that brings these people into your direction. So my shared value with this gentleman of having a sincere desire to invest and build my family was something that attracted him to me. But then secondarily, because I built a relationship with this gentleman ended up in an environment where he could say, Samuel, I'd love for us to do business together. I'm willing to commit 100,000 on one of the upcoming projects. How do you feel about that? And I was like, that's absolutely fantastic. But one of the questions I have is, what's motivated you to basically want to do that at this time? And he said to me, Samuel, it's because you're a family man. He said, you're a family man, I'm a family man. I believe that because of that trait, we will do some great stuff together. And, the rest is history. So I want to encourage you, Yogesh, first and foremost, to think about the shared values. Again, is something that has come up a lot in terms of our conversations previously, but then secondarily to transition into learning and understanding how to start building successful and productive relationships, which create opportunities, if we want to go into the third layer, but which create opportunities for people to be able to reach out to you and say to you, you know what, Yogesh, I'd love to put money in with you. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to do deals with you. I'd love to build with you, and another thing is, I'll share this again. Not many people talk about this, but I will share this because this is something I'm very passionate about. And because I'm passionate about, I've been doing it for years. Okay. I read a John Maxwell book probably about 15 years ago. This book is called Dare to Dream. Okay. Dare to Dream. It's a very small book. This book, I don't even think this book has 100 pages. It's a very thin book, Dare to Dream. Okay. And it's funny because most of John Maxwell's books are not 100 pages. All right. So I believe I read this book around 15 years ago. And one of the things that John Maxwell spoke about in that book, and he talks about it all the time, is called vision casting. Okay. Vision casting is where you share your vision with other people. Okay. And let me tell you something. We grow up in a society which tells people to keep your vision to yourself, keep your goals to yourself, all the things you love, all the things you're interested in, keep it to yourself. Because if you tell other people, they'll steal it. Now, what's the problem with that? It goes back to one of the ideologies I was sharing with Noemi earlier. The problem with that is it's short-sighted. The problem with that is it's not out of a place of an abundance mindset, that philosophy and that theology. And because that philosophy is not out of a place of an abundance mindset, any person who adheres to that framework of I'll keep it to myself, let me tell you one thing about that person. They're operating in lack and they're not operating in abundance. Now, when you operate in abundance, you understand, you know what? I'm not going to keep my vision to myself. I'm going to share my vision with the world. Guys, this is what the Impact Show is, if you haven't realized that. The Impact Show is me sharing my value with the world. I'm not saying, okay, only people who are going to pay £550 and jump on a 1 hour strategy call are going to get this value. I'm actually going to open up this value because I've got more than enough that can go around. I'm willing to put myself out here in a public framework where people can scrutinize, people can say to themselves, oh, I disagree with his answer, or you know what, I think I've got a better answer. And guys, you know what, there's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. You know why? Because I've got an abundance mindset. If I can give you some value, you can use it and go and change around your life, guys, then so be it. Let it happen. Or if, for example, you take some of this abundance and say, you know what, I want more of this abundance. I want to be on Samuel's coaching program. I want to work with Samuel more. I want to read his sourcing blueprint, whatever it may be. Guys, the way this all occurs is from a place of abundance. It does not occur from a place of scarcity. Okay. And that's what I want to help you guys understand. So for me, Yogesh, these are the three central tenets I'll say that you should look at. The first one is learning to project your true core values so that the shared value people will be attracted to you. The second thing is start to be the person who builds relationships successfully. For the third point, which is opportunities to feel comfortable to hand themselves to you. I hope that helps.
Andy, who was the name of the author of that book? Dare to Dream by
John Maxwell, John C. Maxwell, okay? John, John, the letter C, and then Maxwell, John C. Maxwell. He's a leader. He's a leadership expert, a leadership coach. Yeah, you can't Google John C. Maxwell and not find him. Okay, for over 50 years, I believe he has been writing books. He's written over 60 books, and a lot of them are in my personal library. So I've been studying leadership for over 15 years, and John C. Maxwell is one of the main authors in my library. I think the majority of books I've got from any one author are probably from him. So again, John C. Maxwell is a great guy to read in terms of learning more about the things we're talking about. I hope that helps you, Yogesh. Excellent. It's been.
I mean, my situation's a little bit different.
Yep, go for it.
I'm gonna be speaking for one time only. It's like a Dragon's Den type TV show.
Yep.
So if you don't have that time to build up the values, is there any other key tips?
Let me say this to you, Yogesh. Let me say this to you, Yogesh, and we, rather than going down that rabbit hole, I think I should say this. Let me say this to you, Yogesh. I can assure you, Yogesh, if you've got 20 minutes, if you've got 10 minutes, if you've got 60 minutes, it's enough time to project true core values. Okay. Now, values are not just about projecting values are not just about how you speak. Projecting values are not just about how you look. Projecting values are about every core of your essence. We're in this world right now, 2020. For the last 10 years, we've had people talking all over the world about energy, and all of this stuff. Listen, all they're talking about when they're talking about energy is the essence of a human. What is your core essence? Because when you know your core essence, you can project your core essence. The way you say thank you, the way you say sorry, the way you say please, the way you sneeze, the way you stand up, the way you sit down, the way you open your arms to greet someone, or timidly put your hand there to shake someone. Every single part of our core essence is projected as we are just ourselves. So the point I'm trying to make is this. People go to a seminar and they hear someone speak for 20 minutes. And do you know what they do after they hear that person speak for 20 minutes? They wait in queues, in line, for that person to sign their book, or for that person to speak to them for 2 minutes about one thing that the person spoke about in their 20-minute presentation, which really connected or really resonated. What I'm describing? What I'm describing is the projection of core values. When you present, even if it's for 10 minutes, people will pick up your core values and they will be attracted, magnetized, if I use that terminology to you. So don't think for a second that being on a TV show, Dragon Den style, having 10 minutes to speak, 1 minute, 4 minutes to speak isn't enough time. If you think about it, you will realize, you know what, if I know who I am and I present who I am, that will be enough for people who want who I am in their life to come closer to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's great.
All right, Yogesh, look.
I've ordered that book. Yeah.
No worries. You should probably get the book I mentioned prior as well, Thou Shalt Prosper. And again, another fantastic book. It was one of the ones I recommended when Noemi called in. All right. So Yogesh, it's absolutely been a pleasure again to have you on. Thank you for calling and thank you for the great questions. It's always great to have some great questions on the show. All right.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Excellent. See you. Take care. All right, guys. So that was Yogesh. Now, before we check if we've got any other callers, one of the things I want to share with you guys, and this is just in keeping with, I guess, the questions that Noemi asked earlier on. Additionally, side by side with that, the questions that we were getting previously from Yogesh today as well. Those two questions, very, very powerful questions. And I really, really appreciate those questions because they help us to look at things in the light that we're supposed to look at things. And a lot of the time, people don't necessarily look at things in the light that they're supposed to look at things. So guys, thank you ever so much for those of you who have called in already. And we really, really appreciate those calls. Guys, keep the calls coming in. When we do this live show, it's to help you guys. So call in, let us know when you've got questions. Let's strategize together in order to help you. Now, one of the things I want to share with you guys is a little bit of an insight. I got something this week which was a real encouragement. Okay, I had a coaching call on Tuesday, and at the end of that coaching call, the coaching client decided to send me a message. And you know what, the reality is the coaching client didn't need to send me the message. They didn't have to send me the message, but this is the message they sent me. And what I want to do is I want to read this message to you. I believe you can probably see it on the screen. You should be able to, but I want to read the message to you to give you a feel of what this coaching client sent me on the 28th of July. I don't even think you can see the date, but I'll read it out. It says, "Hi Samuel, I just wanted to say this message was sent basically straight after our coaching call on Tuesday this week. And the coaching client says, "Hi Samuel, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate our calls. Just talking through some of my challenges / achievements out loud helps immensely. I also really appreciate that you don't have a timer on our calls. This allows us to talk about things in general or what's happening with you, which I like as well. Your calls always," apologies there guys, "your calls always come at an opportune time when I need clarification or lifting, and it always reaffirms my decisions to continue our relationship. Keep shining your light, Samuel. You are adding so much value. Blessings." Now guys, look, this isn't about me gloating. This is about me helping you guys to understand and see exactly what I've been talking about throughout tonight's show. It's about having an abundance mindset. It's about seeing things on a higher level. It's about not being the person who's a low level thinker, who's just trying to take, but who's trying to give. Now guys, if I told you that this particular coaching client has a property portfolio of over £2 million, you would then maybe have a different way of how you see and interpret this message. But these are the kind of messages I get from people who are willing and ready to put their hands to the plow and make things happen. Guys, this is what this show is all about. It's all about taking the value that these people are getting and sharing it with the wider community. So guys, I want to encourage you in that regard, okay? Go out there and win. Go out there and be that property person who can make it happen. And part of the way you can do that is by going to get this free resource, the Sourcing Blueprint ebook, which is absolutely free. All you've got to do is go to the link www.sourcingblueprint.com. I'll say that again, www.sourcingblueprint.com. Now, with that being said, that brings us to the end of the show. I want to encourage you to do two things. One, go get the Sourcing Blueprint ebook, as mentioned, www.sourcingblueprint.com. And also, straight after that, go and register down here on that link, www.impactproperties.co.uk/webinar. The link is in the description. All the links we're talking about today, guys, are in the description of this video. So you can get on our upcoming webinar on Monday, where we're going to be sharing with you how you can take advantage of property opportunities in this, not in the next, in this current climate. Guys, it's Samuel I Can Win. I'm signing out. Have a great day. And as I usually say, happy investing.
Spirit.